Fans of the Texas Legends and NBA G League basketball, we welcome you into the first ever episode of On the TL, the official Texas Legends Insider podcast, as training camp is upon us here in 2024, the 2024-25 season right around the corner from Comerica Center in Frisco. I'm your host, Kyle Yeomans, the voice of the Legends for my second year running, and really excited to be back with the team this year. An opportunity to make a push for their first playoff appearance since the 2021 season. So lots to look forward to, and we got a great way to start things off on the TL. Be sure to subscribe on all the different platforms. We'll put up a slate at the end of the podcast and allow for you to have a better idea of how to subscribe and be a part of the Texas Legends Insider podcast. But we've got the insider himself. We've got head coach Jordan Sears joining us. We're on the court of training camp, underway here in Frisco. This is the Baylor Scott & White Sports Performance Center. Phenomenal hosts for the last few years for the Legends, and it's been exciting. I feel like walking in here today and getting to see the guys running up and down the floor. It feels like home.
Yeah, for sure. Excited to be here for year two, and a lot of fresh young blood here. Like, it's just super cool to see these guys getting up and down.
It seems like you've got a little glimmer in your eye as well. I mean, what's it like last year was a lot of drinking from a fire hose. First year as a G League head coach, you've been around the professional game for quite some time, and we were just talking about your time with the Milwaukee Bucks previously, but taking on a team of your own, a head coach of a G League team, now you've got a year under your belt. What's it like going into year number two?
Yeah, year one was such a learning experience for me. It was great. It was everything that I hoped for and more. And so year two has gotten off to a good start for me just because my staff has been doing a terrific job. You know, they learned beside me last year. And so for them being here and knowing what to expect in addition to myself, it's been tremendous for us to get off the ground and running a little bit quicker this year.
Now, you mentioned that staff. You retain a lot of that staff from last year. I mean, how important is that moving into year number two, having that as an advantage?
Tremendous. I think with that, from a development standpoint for the staff, you know, you got to give more responsibilities and just empower them. And so that's what we've looked to do with all the familiarity that we have going here. So the staff has done a good job stepping up in their roles and communicating with players more.
Let's take a step back into that first year and what a first year it was. I mean, things didn't necessarily go well in the Showcase Cup for the Legends. Kind of had an up and down learning moment. A lot of guys banged up and a lot of guys moving and shaking on the roster. But once you settled into the regular season, you had just as much of a shot as anybody to make the G League playoffs in the Western Conference. Goes down to the final couple games. You need a couple wins, and you go up against the Maine Celtics at home, turning around. Following a loss there, you go on the road to Oklahoma City to face the Blue. Those two teams ended up being the G League finalists and going all the way to the G League finals. Of course, Oklahoma City winning the G League last year. You guys were so close. What did you learn from those moments and saying, hey, we had a shot against the two best teams in the G League last year to win a playoff spot, and even though we came up close, we showed you were at least in the same building?
I think that showcase portion was such a learning experience for us, and we were able to roll with those punches. We learned about ourselves and like kind of what we could sustain. And so we took that and we had a much more successful second half of the season, kind of got our offense clicking a little bit more, which was great to see. And then health, you know, up and down throughout that regular season portion too. Obviously playing those two really, really good teams. Rolling into this year, watching those two teams play was something that I've like gathered a lot from. And so that was super enlightening. But in general, playing those two teams was difficult for us, obviously, in the moment. We can't make excuses about it. We're definitely competitive in both of those games. But, again, you grow and you learn from those things, and we try to take it and move forward even into our coaching experience going for this year.
You mentioned what you took from those two teams and how good they were, and they were deep too, which I think at that point in the season you were dealing with limited numbers of roster spots because of either injuries or two-way guys being elevated and things of the sort. What did you learn from those two teams that you can take into year number two?
I think structure, especially from an Oklahoma City standpoint. We've played them 4 times this year. We actually played them the first 2 games of the season as well. But they do such a great job with the structure of their offense, making sure everybody understands their role, how to make quick decisions and how to play off of each other. And then they also do it on the defensive side of the ball as well. And Maine, I would say the same thing. They kind of came on strong and For them, I think the way that they just tried different things, they were open to a lot of different things, especially on the defensive side of the ball, different zones and things of that nature, was something that was cool to see. Maine had my former boss, he was my head video coordinator, Blaine Miller. He was in Milwaukee with me as my boss. He's now with the Charlotte Hornets, but he's a guy I've learned from a ton, and so seeing him coach a team beside me was actually a pretty cool experience for me. But again, learn from him there, learning from him now, learn from him in all of those different moments.
In one of the conversations I was having with Terry Sullivan, of course, GM for the Legends, and they've had a busy week with the NBA G League draft and a lot of different roster acquisitions that have come over the last few days. But I kind of talked to him about how the NBA bleeds into the G League. And you saw the two teams, of course, that went to the finals, Oklahoma City and Maine, who, of course, is the affiliate of the Boston Celtics. Both of those teams were legitimate contenders in the Eastern or Western Conference in the NBA level. And then, of course, they both won the Eastern or Western Conference at the G League level. So seeing the success that the Dallas Mavericks have as an organization, how much does that give you hope going into a season like this as the G League affiliate for the Mavericks?
I think that in the NBA right now, in the age of this new cap, an extremely important thing is your player development. And so you're seeing these teams that are extremely successful in the NBA still double down on their player development of their young guys. In the past, I know one of the guys we all think about is LeBron, and he had making it to the finals. He had that in a chokehold, and he didn't have too many young guys with him. He didn't have too many development pieces. The league has kind of flipped in that regard, and so that development is extremely important. And so seeing Oklahoma City, seeing Boston and Maine, see them do those things and have that success on both levels is something that's inspiring to us. Our front office, both G League and NBA, do a great job of giving us the resources to be successful. And, success for us is development. And then within development, you're teaching winning habits. So in doing all of those different things, you want to have that success of winning games as well. And that's something we're striving for here that I'm excited about.
Now, how much does the G League game mirror what the NBA level is doing from just an X's and O's and a pace standpoint? I mean, you can turn on an NBA game night in, night out. You can turn on a G League game, and you may not know from the naked eye and a normal fan the true difference between the two. How much of a difference is there, if any?
There's a big difference. I think a lot of teams pride themselves in running the same things. We try to run some of the similar sets, but everything can't be the same. Just from a skill level and a talent standpoint, we don't have a Luka Doncic, for example.
Wait, really? You don't? Unfortunately not. No. Do you have a Kyrie at least? I mean, you've got to have somebody.
Somebody may or may not think they're Kyrie, but not quite. But you wish you had those guys. Obviously, you don't. And so system-wise, you try to preach some of the same concepts. You try to run in some of the same sets so that when some of the guys from Dallas come up here, they're able to have some familiarity with that. But, that's not always the case. Sometimes we're going to have to try different things. And one thing that we're empowered to do is experiment, especially on the defensive side of the ball, get some different things on film for Coach Kidd. So it varies team to team. For us, I would say it's a little bit different, but we try to mirror some of the things that are more similar to the Mavs' second unit offense.
It's interesting talking about the defensive side of the ball specifically. Of course, Mavs fans are talking about the way that the finals ended and the way that Boston was just unbelievable last year. They were built from top to bottom. But the defense was a hot-button topic around the Dallas Mavericks. How much of an emphasis is it from the top down into the G League level to get better on the defensive end of the floor?
Yeah, it's always an emphasis. Like, we're trying to just find ways to be on the cutting edge on the defensive side of the ball and just be more creative. Obviously, personnel is extremely important, but sometimes you just, as a coaching staff, it's our job to deal with what we have and make the most out of that. And so that defensive side of the ball, whether it's different zones, different rotations and coverages, all of those different things definitely matter a ton.
If you had to lean one way or the other in your own personal coaching style, would you call yourself more of an offensive guru or a defensive guru in terms of your coaching elements?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I would
you're well balanced across the board, but
honestly, I've been on the defensive side for more of my career,
okay.
I would say. And for me as a basketball player, anybody who ever saw me play would know I play defense, and that's about it. That's all I'll give you. Very much a one-sided player. But This year, I feel like I learned a lot on the offensive side of the ball, and we ended with the number 2 offense in the league last year, and we were able to figure out how to make a lot out of a little with regard to the talent we had, the creation, and all of those different things that we, or lack thereof. But I would probably say I lean more towards the defensive side of the ball.
Okay, so that's interesting with it being, like you said, the success that you had offensively last year. Defensive emphasis maybe from the top down this year a little bit more so. Do you feel like this is going to be a more balanced group than you had in 2023-24?
I would say so. I think we're a little bit younger. We're a little bit more athletic, so we're going to have to emphasize using that to our advantage on the defensive side of the ball first and foremost, and then trying to leverage that into our transition offense, whether it's turnovers or rebounds and pushing that ball. So that's like the first layer of what we're teaching on both sides of the ball is that pace. Pace is extremely prevalent in the G League. I think we're going to be a bit more balanced. I think we're still trying to figure out what we're good at on the offensive side of the ball, and we'll get there slowly but surely and just try to find ways to, just get the most out of the parts we have.
Yeah. One of the more interesting sides of the G League is the fact that there is so much roster turnover. And we've even had the conversation, you and I, not only from year to year, but from game to game. The roster can completely flip as things are going on. But from a year-to-year standpoint, it's a different team. It's a different makeup of players. And despite some of the fan favorites that you've had in the past, I mean, of course, Omax Prosper last year, Jaden Hardy the year before, who's now signed an extension with the Dallas Mavericks and made a home with Jason Kidd's bunch. And you have all these guys kind of come through Frisco, become fan favorites, and then move on. Looking at this roster, the way that it's constructed today, which of course could be different tomorrow, but what is the big thing, the identity that you see starting to grow within the group that you've got?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing from an identity standpoint would be the togetherness. Like, I think the youthfulness of this team and everybody just striving to get better, that's kind of the common ground, the common area that everybody in the G League should have and that we have. So just the self-awareness, the communication, the transparency is super important for us all to know where we are right now and that we all play a role in helping each other get to where we need to get to, where our goals are, whether that's NBA or overseas or wherever that may be. So I would say that togetherness is something we've been preaching a ton.
Some of those names that, of course, have been around the Legends for quite some time, Tyler Hall, Justin Jackson, Theo Pinson, have all kind of moved on and gone elsewhere for this upcoming season. But let's take a look at this roster and kind of how it's built. Starting with the two-way guys, you got one returner in Brandon Williams, who fans may remember last year played a limited number of games with the Legends. But when he did, boy, was he electrifying. I mean, what do you see out of this two-way group and what they could bring to the table, both with the Mavs and with the Legends?
I'm extremely excited for the group of two-ways that we have. We have two of the most creative guards you could see in the G League who are still figuring out their games from a pro level at the NBA level and where they fit in there. And so this is a great opportunity and teaching opportunity for them, I think. And we're going to see a lot from them in terms of just pick-and-roll decision-making, guarding and pressuring the ball, all of those little things, being a leader, getting their teammates where they need to get to. So from a development standpoint for them, excited to see how they do and how they flourish throughout the season. With regard to Kessler, he's played a lot of NBA games. Yeah. He's also played some G League games. He's been around the block before. And his presence is very steadying and calming. He has a great self-awareness to him. And so for him to understand his role and understand what it takes to get to that next level and kind of the situations he's looking at from a game-to-game basis is great for him. So he helps us from that standpoint.
Yeah, so the two creative guards you're talking about, Brandon Williams, who I mentioned earlier, and then Jazzy and Gortman, who shined in the Mavs preseason, and you and I were having a conversation last week. He can do a lot of things for you. What are fans going to see from Gortman this year? First year in a Legends uniform. You talk about the creativity. What does he do best?
Yeah, you're going to see a long and athletic guard. He's extremely athletic, great in the open court, very creative with the ball in his hands, shoots it better than most would think as well. And so you're going to see a lot of those different things from him that I think are going to impact winning.
Okay, moving on to some of these E10 guys. I mean, Emmanuel Miller, he's a local product out of TCU. You speak of length, 6'7" forward, 215, and boy, is he experienced. And also it's just fun and athletic to watch. I mean, even when we were watching the scrimmage earlier, he loves the jumper. He loves that mid-range shot. And what else can he bring from a balance standpoint, offensively and defensively?
I think he's another guy who, from a self-awareness standpoint, he's terrific. Like, extremely coachable, very vocal, asks questions, and is just genuine with everything that he does.
Seems like that's not the only guy that does that on the roster, right?
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure, which is something we as coaches have enjoyed, and it makes it a lot more fun to coach guys. But E-Man does a terrific job on both sides of the ball. He understands that defensively that needs to be his calling card, his identity, and so he buys in on that side of the ball. He's big and physical, as you pointed out, and he can guard 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, maybe some 5s, especially at the G League level.
Yeah.
Offensively, he's learning the game at this level. It's a little bit different than the college game, but continuing to expand his game as a shooter, as a driver. He does a terrific job pushing the ball in transition. So you'll get a versatile yet simple game from E-Man.
See, you talked about guarding the 5s in certain spots. I did see a couple times where he went up against Jamarian Sharp. And Jamarian Sharp, for those who don't know, and you'll remember, you'll see him whenever you see him out on the floor in Frisco, he is 7'5". Not just 7 foot, 7'5" in every bit of it. Now, seeing Miller try his best to stay underneath the 5 like that, if you could guard 7'5", you can pretty much guard any 5. I think you're going to run across throughout the G League, right?
Yeah, I mean he embraces the role as much as anybody does, and if you're going to deal with a guy of that size, whether they're strong or not, physicality is going to be important, and that is something he lacks.
Yeah. What is the exciting side to have a guy like that with so much length? And he's got some skill to him, too. It's not just length. He can do a number of things on the floor. To Sharp. Yeah.
He's got really good touch, and he's developing in that regard. Like, he just wants to learn.
Yeah.
He's seeking knowledge. So he's incredibly coachable on that standpoint, and we're excited to keep working with him and help him learn the game.
Of course, he comes from Ole Miss, and the SEC brand of basketball starting to take a step forward, just like what we've seen from the football side of things in the SEC. SEC basketball's got some powerhouses now across the board, not just Kentucky like it used to be. They've got Alabama, Auburn playing good ball. Ole Miss is one of those programs. What's it like seeing some of those guys like Sharp coming in from Ole Miss and some of these power programs and how much they bring to the floor in the G League?
Honestly, I think from my observation watching SEC basketball, I've seen the coaching improve a ton.
Oh, yeah.
And, you look at guys like Eric Musselman, who has since left, and Nate Oates.
Yeah.
You see those guys at NBA
Nate
training
Oates is
camps.
one of my favorites.
Yeah,
he's
great
phenomenal.
coach.
Yeah.
You see those guys pretty frequently at NBA training camps, and so they're learning. And so, we've seen this in working our draft workouts and other things, whether it's the SEC or elsewhere.
Yeah.
There are a lot of college teams that are putting in more NBA things, and so we'll put in a concept, and guys will say, "Oh yeah, we did this at school," and so it's the best thing to see because they'll understand it a little bit quicker, and you can be more efficient with your time. But the expectation for those guys, one way or another, is that they've been coached at a high level, and that they will continue to do so.
Yeah, you mentioned Sharp when I was asking you who excites you about this season. Why is he the guy that you pointed to in that moment?
Man, I think at the Comerica Center, the kids are going to be extremely excited to see Sharp.
Now, will he see the kids? That's the problem because they're so far down on the floor.
I could imagine Sharp enjoys a bounce house every once in a while if he fits into it. He's got that kind of personality. Like he's just he's a great.
He's going to be sliding down the vertical rush at some point.
I wouldn't be surprised. But he's just a fun-loving dude. Like he loves to play and be on the court, but he has just such a great, caring personality.
That's awesome. Really excited about that. And he seems like he fits in, first off, and then, of course, he stands out as well. Some of these returners that fans might remember, T.J. Clark, Warith Alatishe, Tiafiel Leonard, I mean, these are all guys that played significant minutes last year for the Legends. Who stands out of that group and can continue to take a step forward?
Yeah, you mentioned all three of them. I think improvement has been massive for them from every standpoint, from a mental standpoint, a physical and conditioning standpoint, and a skill standpoint.
Yeah.
Like all three of them have done a terrific job, and we've commended them on it. And so for them just coming into camp, being leaders and helping all of the newcomers in that role is super important for them and their leadership and just trying to help us get to where we need to get to.
Now tell me about one of these draft picks. Of course, the NBA G League draft the last couple of weeks, the Terry Sullivan and the entire crew, you being involved, and your coaching staff being involved, hard at work, bringing these guys to Frisco. Who stands out of that group?
Yeah, first off, I think Terry and the front office did a terrific job in the draft and got us some talented guys who are all contributing to training camp.
Nice.
They're all doing a terrific job.
That's great to hear.
Just the nature of a G League training camp, everybody on the team is not guaranteed to make a spot. And so, we're always evaluating these guys, and they're doing a great job of competing. I would say they've all done a terrific job on that standpoint of being coachable and doing those things. I think Tyson Walker is a guy we've seen so far just
Michigan State.
Yeah, what he's done at Michigan State, his level of productivity has been terrific at that level. Somebody we're definitely curious and looking at to see if he can, help us in terms of initiating offense and seeing if he can kind of keep that same level of production from a scoring standpoint and then, continue to develop his game and as a passer and things of that regard.
All spacing, all the pro game, all these different things along the way. A lot of times rookies, it takes a little bit of time, but that's what these practices are about. It's actually kind of weird sitting in here when there's nothing else going on because it's so vocal and there's so much communication. How is that compared, that element of training camp compared in the early going compared to the first one that you had last year in terms of communication?
Yeah, I think one of the really good things for us this year is that we've been able to get most of our guys in a little bit earlier, about a week or two earlier, just to work out and to play. And so our strength staff has done a great job. Brandon Joyner, our strength coach in particular, has done a great job of making sure the guys are in shape physically and then from a conditioning standpoint. And so for them to be able to do that for a couple weeks gives them a bit of a head start. And so in comparison to last year, we're in a little bit better shape strictly because of that reason, which has been tremendous for us in getting off to a good start here.
Man, it seems like it is a good start, and it's been a great start for the Mavericks, too, in the regular season. Let's talk a little bit of Mavs here. What have you seen from the parent club and what Dallas is doing on the heels, of course, of a Western Conference championship last year and trying to make it all the way back there and finish the job this time?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, obviously we have some roster changes with adding guys like Najee Marshall and Klay Thompson.
That Klay Thompson guy's pretty good, huh?
Pretty good, pretty good. But everybody's getting up to speed, and I think one of the biggest things is just everybody's getting familiar with each other.
Yeah.
We all understand, they all understand that they don't know each other's game, but they're putting their best foot forward to understand it. And obviously a lot of our game revolves around Luka, and he's doing a good job of getting on the same page with everybody.
Yeah, it really seems like it's almost like a cheat code to have Luka and Kyrie as the creators, and so much attention goes their direction, and then you have one of the best three-point shooters of all time sitting on the opposite side of the floor. That's unbelievable, the fact that it worked out that way, one, that you were able to get Klay Thompson to Dallas, but then the way that it just works is from a spacing standpoint and an X's and O's standpoint, it could be lethal in the NBA.
Yeah, honestly, I get extremely excited anytime I see him shoot just because it's just an open shot, and it's like, man, he must be loving it here. Like, he's getting shots as open as ever. But, from a play calling standpoint, obviously he's going to be a focal point of what we're trying to do from an offensive standpoint. So excited to see what he can do and how he can just help contribute to everything we have going on here.
What about Omax Prosper and Jaden Hardy, a couple former legends, taking the step forward and making it to the NBA? And, of course, they got a ton of playing time in the preseason, but what have you seen from them and the growth in their game?
Yeah, they've gotten a ton of playing time in the preseason. Both have gotten in here in short stints in these games here. Jaden a little bit more than Omax, but they're both still developing and getting better and understanding what their calling cards and what they're asked to do. So for Omax, defensively, he is extremely bought in on that side of the ball and doing everything he can to guard primary offensive players and impact the game that way. Jaden has done a good job of trying to do what's asked and step into an initiator role when we need him to. So running the point guard and getting people organized when needed and finding the balance between that and scoring and playing off the ball.
I love it. I love hearing that about Omax, about Jaden. Both guys were fantastic while they were here with the Legends, and then, of course, taking that same mentality, that same teamwork mindset, and taking it to the NBA level. And that's why they will stick around. If they have the right mindset and they have the right wherewithal to go up there and extensively grow their game in a big way, I think that's what you're going to see those guys have some success. It'll be fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think You said it. Mindset is everything to us, and that's kind of what we look for here. And it's something we try to develop more in our teachings here at the G League level, at the most foundational level. Some guys are fortunate to come in with the best of mindsets and the best of skill sets. That doesn't always happen. It's something that has to be trained at every level, and something we're continuing to teach every guy we have.
Yeah. We started the first part of the podcast talking about the end of last year, finishing out against Oklahoma City on the road. Well, you get to start this year in Oklahoma City on the road, November 12th, a chance to go back up there and open the season in a big way. I mean, what's the excitement level like once training camp wraps up and you get to kind of put the foot to the pedal to the metal in terms of getting this season underway?
Super excited. Obviously, as I said earlier, we've played them 4 times.
Yeah.
We play them 4 times a year, and so it's almost like a rivalry of sorts in that regard. They're a very well-coached team, and it's pretty easy to get your guys going for a game like that when you say defending champs.
Yeah.
You know, they do a terrific job, and obviously it's going to get the best out of us. And so the hope is that we have that early season test and we can take it, and win or loss, just gain something out of it and get some momentum rolling into the season. To my understanding, that's an 11 a.m. game.
It's an 11 a.m. game.
When you see that on the schedule, that typically means kids' game. So whether that
get it out of the way early, I guess.
That
if
arena
you're Oklahoma
is,
City.
yeah. Whether that arena is packed with kids or not, will be an interesting one. So it could be quite the environment potentially.
Yeah.
But
you think they raise a banner with all the kids in the building?
Who knows?
Maybe. I don't know.
Who knows? But it'll be a fun one. It's one of those ones when you see the schedule where you're just excited to kind of get to go and play a team like that again.
Well, I know I'm excited about that one. I'm excited about the home opener at Comerica Center on November 17th against the Memphis Hustle. So much going on over these next couple of weeks. Training camp here in Frisco continuing forward. And, Jordan, I appreciate you taking some time. First ever episode of On the TL. You like the name, right? On the TL? Yeah, it could be a couple different things. On the DL, keep it on the DL because it's an insiders podcast, but also Timeline, Texas Legends. It all just kind of works out. Yeah.
We'll figure out what it means one day, maybe.
Well, we know what it means. You'll figure out at home what it means later on. That's the case. But, Jordan, appreciate you as always.
Yes,
and
thank
good
you,
luck
Kyle.
this season. It won't be the last time we talk. Of course, we'll have all the broadcasts throughout the year. But be sure to subscribe, follow Jordan, and make sure that journey all the way continues from the beginning of training camp to the end of the Texas Legends regular season. I'm Kyle Yeoman signing off for the first episode of On the TL, the official Texas Legends Insider Podcast.